Welcome back to another edition of From Beyond Champaign. I'm Cody. You can follow me on all the socials at Cody_CHGO, as most of you know, but I gotta always let everyone know. Link in the description for audio for Spotify, now on Apple as well. And yeah, any likes or subs to the YouTube channel, much appreciated. Went over 600 like a week or two ago. So we're growing steadily, slowly, but steadily. Not as fast as my buddy Sunny Verma, who's joining me, host of Locked On Illini. Huge Cubs fan. That's why we're friends, but also we like to yell about Illini hoops too together. So, Sunny, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. That Northwestern game, ever since that Northwestern game, I think, it's been pretty good times for both Illini fans and Cubs fans. So as of this moment, at least, I got a smile on my face.
Yeah. So I guess I should mention this. I feel like for anyone who knows or follows me, the Cubs traded for Ryan Presley the day of the Illini Northwestern game. And I got to watch the Illini game, the first half, from home. It was also my girlfriend's birthday. So I had to go to Olive Garden for a family dinner with her and her family. And so I'm pretty sure I was parking into the Olive Garden in Schaumburg as Illinois was about to win the game. And of course, I was starting to sweat a little bit with that last 3 minutes of the game, which was annoying. But as I'm pulling in, Illinois is winning. I park, and my girlfriend's sitting next to me in the car, and she's like, I just got an ESPN update saying the Cubs have made a trade. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because I was just thinking, all right, I'll just do the Illini recap when I get home, And then the Cubs traded for Ryan Presley, and just my entire day, the rest of my day after we had dinner with her parents, was dedicated to the Cubs. And so, if you want your immediate Illini news, go to my friend Sunny. But hey, if you like me and you like what I have to say about Illini, for sure, hit the subscribe button if you're new. If you've come from Sunny, but I am in his Discord, which is a lot of fun as well. So yeah,
no, it's we have a good time in the Discord, but Cody, I'll jump on here every now and then. Cody jumps in on Locked On Illini every now and then. So it's it's not the biggest community in the world, the Illini fan base, but whenever we get together, it's all a cohesive effort.
Right. So I guess to kind of recap Northwestern for me, like I think you hit it perfectly. Like you feel better. You feel better than you did after the loss to Maryland. Let me say that. The loss to Maryland was, on my post game, like the thumbnail was embarrassing. Arguably,
I think it was on mine too.
Yeah, that's not surprising. All of them, all the Illinois podcasts after Maryland, I hope they all said embarrassing.
Yeah.
But to bounce back against Northwestern, a team that had already beat you at their house, and bounce back in a big way, outside those last 3 minutes when you were basically on cruise control, I thought it was a good bounce back win at home against, whether you want to call them a rival or not, it's a team that has been kind of playing better. I don't know what to make of Northwestern, because after they lost to Northwestern and the rest of the month of December, and watching them play out and some of the losses they had, I was like, man, this is going to turn into a bad loss.
Yeah.
And then they started playing better, and I think they're in the running for an at-large bid, but I don't know if they'll get there, But I at this point, considering I think Chris Collins is a great coach, I won't jump to conclusions and say that they're not a tournament team, but I am hopeful that they win more games. That way that loss doesn't hurt Illinois in terms of tournament seeding. I do think that the USC loss will be the biggest loss on their resume for them by the end of the year. But again, just good to see them bounce back without Tommy, who knows when he's going to be back. To win at home, like they've struggled at home this month, right? And they've just been so up and down, inconsistent. I don't really know what to make of this team. It's been a roller coaster, dude.
Yeah, and it's one of those where, a lot of Illini fans were in such almost panic mode after that Maryland game. Again,
Yeah.
you're talking about having lost 2 in a row at home, essentially kissing your Big Ten conference hopes goodbye, being 4 losses behind Michigan State, who won again earlier tonight. And just the idea that, you're sitting at 5-4 in the conference, and, normally you succeed against Northwestern, we have a pretty good history against. But if we happen to get swept by them this season, I think it would have been a combination of so many things. Being 5-5 when there was so much hype about this Illini team coming into this year, and the relatively strong start that we had to the season. I think this would have been the first time we would have been swept by Northwestern since like the 1960s or something along those lines. And not just that. I think the national spotlight has been on Illinois pretty strongly ever since that Michigan State game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talking about the refereeing. And, I don't know about you, Cody, but I can't tweet anything or make a video without a Michigan State fan wanting to chime in anymore. So I feel like people were enjoying trying to jump on the grave of Illini fans after that Maryland game. And if all of a sudden they lost that Northwestern game, I really think that a certain portion of this fan base would have broken.
Yeah. Well, the Michigan State game, I think I took 2 takeaways from it. 2 things that are true. The refs absolutely screwed Illinois in the fact that Kasparis Giacchionis played 9 minutes. I don't care what anyone says. The best player on the floor shouldn't foul out in 9 minutes. I don't care what anyone says. That is bad. That is terrible reffing. Okay.
Yeah.
They dictated how the game went. That like when me or you or anyone else, they don't have to be Illini fans. When we say the phrase, they're making the game about themselves, that's what we're talking about. And when you go back and look at those replays, it's like at least 3 of them should not have been called fouls. They should have been no calls, play-ons. You know what I mean? But on the other flip side of that, they missed like 10 or 11 free throws in that game.
Right.
And they shot like 20% from 3. Like they did not help themselves. The most frustrating thing about that game is the fact that despite Kasparis playing 9 minutes and despite missing 10 free throws and despite shooting the way they did from 3, they only lost by 2. And it's like, it's in a way, it's a silver lining that you were right there, but also frustrating because how many more moral victory games am I going to have to talk myself into, Sonny?
Yeah, it's tough because we all saw the game, and it's not just Illini fans. Usually people complain, Illini fan base, which, granted is a very rabid, a very loud fan base, in particular on the social medias, was complaining about the refereeing. But it wasn't just us. Even when I was done with our post game, I went on, just to catch up to see what everyone else was saying. And all the national media guys said the same exact thing about the refereeing in that particular game. And from that point, I was ready to move on, right? This just happens. Illinois is on the good side of this on occasion too, right? Yeah. My friend JR from the Big Ten Huddle reminded me of, I think it was last year's Ohio State game in the Big Ten tournament, where all of a sudden, we got a couple of calls and I'm just like looking around like, okay, we caught a break there. It happens. Sports happens. This is going to, it's a reality of being a sports fan.
Yeah.
But then Michigan State fans, all of a sudden, we're the only people coming up saying, no, those were clearly fouls. No, this didn't happen. I think if it was one of those where if Michigan State fans didn't try to jump on this and I felt like they were a little offended by the fact that people weren't giving them credit for that win. If you really think about it, I mean, Illinois went up in the rankings after that game because everyone saw it happen. And so I think there was a little kind of insecurity when it comes to the Spartans fans who hey, we're 7-0. We're a really good basketball team. You absolutely are. That's fine. And you know what? For one game, you guys caught a break with officiating. It happens to Illini fans. It happens to everybody. Sometimes you're on the good end. Sometimes you're on the bad end. But I think the absolute refusal of Spartans fans to acknowledge that they could have caught a break. I've watched that game twice now. For me, I counted 3 fine fouls. That's it. After that, the 5th foul was obviously a foul. No doubt about it.
I would agree with that.
early in the second half where he got pushed and he fell down, the other player fell on him, and he got the foul called on him. It was ridiculous. But I think that's just what kind of blew everything up, right?
Yeah.
Michigan State fans just prolonging this, and all of a sudden, we'll have my counterpart at Locked On Spartans who's basically because again, it's fun to make fun of Illini fans because we're so passionate. So the story came out that Illini fans continue to cry about the officiating, but I don't know if that was really the case. It was like we're venting, we're frustrated. 24, 48 hours later, that's fine. We were ready to move on, but then all of a sudden, you have these Spartans fans. Oh, here goes Illini Twitter crying again. It's like, what are you talking about?
I will say this to play a little devil's advocate, and I hate that I'm going to do this because you know how much I stand Brad Underwood. But the day before the Maryland game, he got asked about officials or something again. And then he openly said he was honest about how he reached out to the league or something like that. And in a way, it just made it look like they weren't focused going into the Maryland game. And that to me made me mad about the Maryland game, that they just did not look prepared for that game whatsoever. He can talk about Tommy not being there, the fact that half the team was sick, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, you have set a standard. Brad. Have your team ready to play at home on a Thursday night against a Big Ten opponent, okay? And they lost by 20, is the biggest loss since like 2018, all right? So do I think that perhaps we as fans, and whether you want to agree with me about what I just said about Brad or not, do I think that maybe we went on and a little bit too much about the refs? Maybe. I will say though that, talking about the national media when it comes to Illinois, it's been hot and cold. And so that brings me to my bone I have to pick with you, Sonny.
Okay,
that brings me to my bone that I have to pick with you. And I hope that your opinion has changed, because I get in the moment, I listen to enough of your post games where, it's a venting session and, just get it all out, blah, blah, blah. Right. But I believe I saw you tweet that and after the Maryland game, I believe I saw you tweet that you were having 2022, 2023 vibes from this team. And that's a team with Sky Clark, Matthew Mayer, first year of Terrence Shannon, all like Jaden Epps. Like that team was, when I think about that team now, that team was toxic. That team, like, I don't think those guys enjoyed playing together. I mean, one guy, Sky Clark, transferred in December or left the team for mental health issues. I'm still mad about the way that was framed. Yeah. All of that. Like, there were a lot of issues with that team. And my bone that I have with you, man, is that they go beat Oregon by 40 or whatever it was, a top 10 team in the country. They played the toughest non-conference, or not the toughest, but one of the tougher non-conference schedules. And the team is still intact. They have a NBA caliber player on their team with a higher ceiling than Sky Clark ever did, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
My bone I have here is that, like, I understand that in the moment, it might have felt like the vibe was like, oh, we played this tough schedule. We beat Oregon. We beat Arkansas, if that one even really matters anymore. I don't know. They beat all these teams, beat Penn State without Kasparis by 1,000 points, right? But now we've lost to USC, we've lost to Michigan State, and we've lost to Maryland, and now I'm completely shifting my feeling on this team. And I'm bringing it up because I'm holding you accountable, because I know that you have gone into this entire season thinking it's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And for sure, after Maryland, it was probably the lowest point of the entire season. But there is no way you can compare this team to 2022, 2023, my man. There's just absolutely no way. No way.
Yeah. Okay. So full disclosure, I say this in every post-game bet. It's a vent session. 24 hours. We all have a 24-hour period to say whatever you want. The hottest take you got. even the ones I don't agree with in the comment section. I put them up for display, et cetera, et cetera. What I meant with that 2022-2023 comparison is not necessarily, obviously, the biggest issue with the team a couple years ago was chemistry issues, like you said. But that team also had a very early big win against UCLA. And Texas. I believe, and Texas, right. Two very key wins. And a lot of people were very excited about that Illinois team. And we were just waiting to see just how well it would, the season would, come about. Illinois right now, before this past game against Northwestern, was 5-4, right? I mean, as much as we're talking about that 30-plus point blowout at Oregon, I feel like that's almost negated by a 20-point loss at home to Maryland. So, like, for me, it's like, yes, I know there were those highs, but there were also the lows. And so, for me, it's this team, even now, you said it. You called me out on my own words. I think I said it on this show when we previewed the season, right?
Yep.
This season was going to be a roller coaster ride, the highest of highs, and you're going to have the lowest of lows. But right now, I think just the mood, again, 5-4 with just an embarrassing loss at home, right? And you didn't know how long the Visic was going to be gone for. In some ways, you wonder, Kasparis has only been in this country for a couple of months, right? Yep. He's been playing Europe. At some point, do his handlers out there say, hey, it's time to, let's maybe focus a little bit about the NBA, protect yourself a little bit. Like if the season is lost, don't go all out. So for me, it was just drawing those type of comparisons where, I've said, I think this is the second best team in the Big Ten Conference, but it has the highest ceiling. And for me, the idea that this team could finish, 11-9 in the Big Ten Conference, for me, would feel like it underachieved. And that's what I felt like about that 2022-2023 team. So I guess that's where my comparison comes in. Not necessarily, you're right, off the court, zero issues, knock on wood, so far this year. But it's just the on the court results.
I hear you. And like, you're not the only person where people were saying something like that I saw. Like, maybe they didn't necessarily say it, but we know how this fan base is. It's like you said, it's passionate. Every loss, the amount of people who are like firebrand, the amount, and then after a win, we're still finding reasons to complain, or I don't know. And at the end of the day, to me, like I somewhat enjoy it because the standard has been set so high now.
Yeah.
And for a long time, as I've had this conversation with you before, like, man, we used to just hope to be the last four in, and then that never happened, So I get it. And I understand a lot of people's frustration, especially these last 2 weeks, because I've been right there. And so this kind of brings me to the title of the show here. And that is, can Illinois turn the corner now after this win over Northwestern? I don't know if you listened to the show at the beginning of the month, the episode I did, or it was like the very beginning of January. I said, optimistically, I asked to go 7-2, but I said in reality, I feel like 6-3 is possible. They can still go 6-3 in January if they go to Nebraska and win on Thursday. And then you go into February, and the schedule is you got some games that I felt like might have been tougher a few months ago, but with how things have played out, I feel like it's an opportunity for Illinois. But the big question for me, no matter what, doesn't matter who they're playing. I'm not even really looking at the schedule and thinking about how, like, feeling anxiety about those teams. As you said, as I've said, I feel like Illinois, talent-wise, everything, chemistry-wise, and all things together, despite the fact that I don't think they played their best basketball yet, I still think they're top 2 team in the Big Ten. So I'm not looking at any team. Maybe I'm looking at Purdue, right? I'm not even looking at Michigan State. They can win as many games in a row. After that game that Illinois played against them, I got February 15th circled on the calendar, and I'm ready to get revenge, right? But can this Illini team find a way to get some consistency going into February, man? Because I think it's just I think most of the frustration is you beat Oregon by 90 Then you almost blow it against Washington. You beat Penn State by 90 without Kasparis. Then you lose to USC at home at 11 a.m. tip-off. You beat Indiana by 90. Mike Woodson, fire Mike Woodson chance. Then you lose to Maryland at home, or you lose to Michigan State. Whatever. Yeah, it was Michigan State. Lose to Michigan State for various reasons that honestly you controlled, but whatever. And then you lose. Then you lose to Maryland, right? Like the Northwestern wins is a nice bounce back, but all they did in that game was prove to me that they should have freaking won Evanston in December. So now it's like, can we have any kind of consistency at all? Can we put together a full game on a consistent basis, and then at the end feel like, win or lose, that they gave their best effort and they did what they want to do, and then the losses just say, okay, this is why they lost, but I'm optimistic because, hey, the team didn't shoot 20% from three, or hey, Will Riley is in a complete no-show. Like I could go down a list of things that I feel like are why they are inconsistent, and those are probably my top two things. They either shoot the three ball well or they don't. There's no middle ground, and I like Will Riley, man, but I thought after the Michigan State game maybe he'd turn the corner. He was terrible against Maryland. I don't know how to feel about Will, man. I've tried to be patient. At this point, I guess I'm happy that he'll probably come back for year two, but I'm also like, do I want him to come back? I don't want to feel that way, man. I want to feel more so in the middle. Like I have a little anxiety about him going to the NBA because he's playing well. And I just feel like he's been a disappointment at this point, So I'm rambling. I'll let you talk.
No, I mean, it's hard to argue with anything you're saying, like including Will Riley, right? I keep saying that at some point we're going to get the Will Riley game, and it looked like Michigan State could have been it. But, ultimately it wasn't in that second half, although he's also one of the guys who, had some foul trouble pinned on him. So who knows how things would have changed. But, so start off with Will. The frustrating part about him is he's getting shots. They're just not falling. Right. Mm-hmm. And for me, for all the high school tape I watched of him, like he's an incredible scorer. And so earlier on in the season, I kept saying, just wait, it's fine. Shoot, just shoot. I said this about Ben Hummerkaus, and, eventually Ben was able to turn this thing around a little bit. Will Riley, quite honestly, still hasn't. I think I saw a stat that he's shooting like 14% from 3-point land during the Big Ten season.
Yeah.
Something, really disappointing like that. And again, that's his best skill. Now, his other skills are actually improving every single game, which is why I still think he's getting pretty decent minutes with Brad. He's rebounding the ball pretty well. He's, trying on defense. He's still not a great defender, but, those are at least progressing as the season goes along. But yeah, it's his shooting that's going to be the key. At this point, I think I said this on the show, Will Riley is the key difference between this team being a Sweet 16 team or a Final Four team. Mm-hmm. If Will Riley plays like he did at the beginning of this year and is a bona fide, secondary scorer behind Kasparis, but, along with a guy like Isivic, then this team has a lot of weapons, especially if Ben is making those 3-pointers. But right now, they're just not. And the team itself is not shooting, their 3 points very well. But, talking about whether they can turn the corner, it's just one of those where it's so 50-50, mm-hmm. right? Like you said, I 100% am confident going to Purdue and going to Michigan State, Michigan, whoever we're playing, I think Illinois can win that game. But with the way the season has been going, we play Nebraska on Thursday. And what I'm worried about is, okay, Nebraska, I know they've lost 6 in a row, but historically, at least recent history, they're always pretty good at home. Could this just be one of those stinkers of an Illinois game where, Kasparis gets in foul trouble early, the team looks disoriented, and they don't have Isivic to bail him out this time? Like, Isivic's playmaking at the end of that Michigan State game was huge. Mm. The way he kept finding Morez Johnson, at the top of the key, just some of the passes he was making was great. Kylan's not a point guard. And when Kasparis is gone, and if Isivic is gone, all of a sudden, this team, I don't know who's going to set the teammates up. And so, again, I think we can beat Purdue, but I also think we can lose to Nebraska. So that's why it's hard for me to, think, if you told me like we could win every single game up until, Duke, sure, I believe you. If you tell me that we can lose half the games up until Duke, sure, I believe you. So like, this is just one of those seasons, and it comes with, being such a young team with such a drastic roster turnover that they had, 10 guys, just completely new roster. And so we don't know them yet. And they themselves like aren't just comfortable together apparently yet. So it's like, is this a team that's just going to show up against like USC, where it's like, where you guys are just lifeless? There's nothing. Maryland, I have a little bit more excuses. I just hate using that word because of what we got finished with that Michigan State game. A viewer of the show, and I have to keep this as broad as possible, but he's involved in the practices of Illini basketball. And he texted me immediately after the game saying half the players that played in that game weren't even practicing the previous few days because they'd all been sick. Isivic is the only one who was sick enough that he couldn't play, but we saw Trey White and Will Riley be questionable.
Yeah.
And anytime they cut to Kylan Boswell's face, he looked like he was dehydrated. So like after the fact, I can see how the team lost. But I just think, with us being 5-4 now and losing that Michigan State game a couple days earlier, that everything just piled on all at once. And there was a panic mode. Whereas if this Maryland loss had happened in a bubble, like later on in the season with all the other details that we find out afterwards, I think Illinois Nation would not be as panicky as we ended up being.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point about them being sick. And as much as I don't want it to be an excuse, especially when you lose by 20, like the matchup was terrible. Like Julian Reese and Queen just owned the paint. I mean, 62 points in the paint, something like that. That Maryland scored 90 points. I mean, I think if there's anything that I feel like has been consistent with this team is they've rebounded. And they didn't rebound in that game, though. So I think the keys for success for Illinois to maybe turn that corner and find some consistency is they have to win the rebounding column. They have to do that. And let's just be honest about it. Like, as much as we can sit here and complain about Brad and his in-game coaching decisions sometimes and this and that, like, dude's got to make shots at some point, man. Like, Will Riley can't shoot 14% from three. And like, old me would probably be a little bit more lenient because these college athletes weren't making any money, but these college athletes are making money now, man. Yeah. Like, how much money are you giving these guys to come out here and do this? Like, there's a balance, I think. Like, I'm not going to sit here and dog them like I do certain Cubs players at times, but we are in the state of college basketball of where we are. And believe me, I'm rooting for him. I'm cheering for him. I'll freaking ride or die for Brad Underwood. And I'm grown to truly appreciate what I'm watching from Kasparis. And I'm seeing what Kylan Boswell can be and how maybe he can be even better next year. And I can go down the list of guys on this roster, man. But it doesn't take away from the fact that they just need to start making shots, dude. Like, I think that has to at least play a part. So the Maryland game, maybe it's an outlier. I hope it is. I hope that and the USC game are outliers. As much as the Michigan State loss was a brutal one to take, I still felt like they played well that day and in many aspects, despite the fact that they couldn't make any threes and they missed key free throws, but they went on the road to the Breslin Center and lost by 2. They played well on the road this year, I feel like. So they need to go to Nebraska and take care of business. If you're a Sweet 16 team, you go to Nebraska on Thursday and win the game. That's just how I view it. And I think Brad, there's accountability for Brad, the players, all of them. Like, that's how I'm viewing it, man. Like, I don't think it's one particular thing. I feel like fans blame Brad too much and don't blame the players enough. And then there's some people who blame the players too much and don't give Brad enough grief. Or they pick the one player that probably they've been mad at for 2 months because it was a bad first impression, and they have that thinking of that player for 2 months. You know what I mean? So I think there just needs to be a little bit more balance from the fan base and who they're criticizing and stuff. But at the same time, like, Brad, like, go to a zone quicker against Maryland, maybe. And hey, Will Riley, you're one of the highest rated recruits in Illini history. You can't shoot 14% from three in Big Ten play.
And it's not just them. Like, I know we've kind of pinned this on Will Riley, but it's like Kylan Boswell is shooting 37% from the field. Right.
Add him to it too. As much as I feel like he's played well, he also needs to hit shots.
Exactly right. I mean, the fault of this team is that, like, Brad and the staff constructed it to hit 3-pointers. Right. That was clearly a strategy of the makeup of the entire team. Kasparis is the engine. When the defense collapses on him, basically we have 5 guys who can shoot 3-pointers. Problem is they're not hitting them. So, it's not going by the game plan. Right now, Trey White is shooting, I think I saw 24% from 3-point land. That's just not going to cut it. Those 2 guys are playing a majority of those minutes. They're on the court a lot of the times. I'm not saying they need to shoot 40%, but they need to be 1 out of 3. If you can just keep the defense honest by making 33% of your 3-point percentage, and then we can have maybe Ben eventually, hopefully, go up to like the 40% range or whatever. And Will Riley, again, hopefully that seems to be, the word I keep repeating, just turns into just a secondary scorer. That's kind of all we need. So I love Brad in the sense where he's never going to pin the blame on his players. He'll always say, I didn't get them ready. Or if, Ben Hummerkaus wasn't making shots earlier, he's like, yeah, well, he's just got to keep shooting. And he continues to say the same thing about Will Riley. Like, he just needs to keep shooting.
Yeah.
And I get it. And it's because we need them to get out of this funk for this team to reach its potential, right? For this team to have, Elite 8, Final 4 aspirations, it means that everything needs to go right. Because I think Cody will agree with me. We've seen when everything goes right for this team, they took the number 1 team in the country and lost on the last second.
Yeah.
Tennessee, a very, very good basketball team. They can beat anybody in the country when they're on. The problem is, more often than not, they're not on. And again, some of it I attribute to just younger guys, roster turnover and all that, but we're more than halfway through the Big Ten season now. It's time to do it or don't do it. And again, it's Kylan and Trey, who are 2 of the veterans on the team, right? It's their first year on this team, but they're both juniors. At this point. So, like, I was hoping for a little bit more stability with them. Kylan, in my opinion, was one of the main reasons for that Northwestern comeback late in the game. As soon as they took Kasparis out, Kylan just shot threes that he didn't need to take and had some careless turnovers. And it's like, he's been a great addition to the team, but you got to make some baskets. Otherwise, this team just, its ceiling is limited.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some comments we can get to, but to kind of close on this part, I feel like I have to always tell myself or remind myself of my expectations back in November. And my expectations were very just kind of, I guess the same as they normally are. Like, all things go right, they go to a second weekend, and then, no one looked at the Alabama loss as a bad loss. They thought it was we all thought we'd look back at it as a growing moment, right? Yeah. You beat Arkansas by 90. You beat Mizzou in a game that the refs tried to give it to Mizzou, and I think the Mizzou win is a huge win for them now. They beat Florida, they beat Kansas. They're better than I thought they would be. Sure, you lost to Tennessee, but you took them, like you said, to the final second. You can make the argument they should have freaking won the game. Yeah. They beat Wisconsin, who's ranked right now, right? What's the other SEC team that I'm missing? Did I get them? Oh, I said Arkansas. Oh no, I said them all.
Okay.
They have Duke later, and if they beat Duke at Madison Square Garden, which the atmosphere for that game on a neutral site is going to be electric, I think. But I felt like the non-conference schedule they had was not surprising. Like the way that it played out wasn't the most surprising thing. I asked for 2-2 against the SEC schools, and I picked the 2 that I thought they would beat, and they were the ones they beat. And then optimistically thought, okay, they can go 3-1 if they give their best game against Tennessee. And unfortunately, I don't think they gave their best game, but because Tennessee didn't have their best game either, Illinois had every chance to win the game. Now, in Big Ten play, and this is when, you want to talk about the national media and then their reactions and how it gets people riled up. The way they beat Oregon, I went into that game thinking they're going to lose. Yeah. I was like, they lose by less than 10, I'll be happy. They won by 90, Yeah. And, even though they almost blew it against Washington, you still win a road game, and the Big Ten is always good, right? Beat Penn State by 40, whatever it was. So that's 3 wins right there where the national media, that's when they were at their peak of like optimism and positivity about Illinois. And then they had the huge letdown against USC, the Indiana game, whatever, like they took away the attention for a day because the Hoosiers are in a much, much worse situation than us, right? And then Michigan State happens, and then the Maryland game happens. And now we're here, and we're just kind of like up in the air right now of like how we're feeling. So I feel like in January, we've just had, I'll explain it in my own terms. We've had peak delusion where I'm at one point thinking, we're going to the national championship this year. We're going to the Final Four. You beat Penn State by 90 without Kasparis. Yeah, for a day I was like, this team is going deep, right? Then USC was a letdown, and I thought maybe it was just one of those random games in January. But as the games have gone on, it's like I feel like I've came back down to reality a little bit. So that's why I'm saying here to end this that I have going back to how I felt back in November, which was, second weekend, maybe more if Kasparis is better than what we all think, which he has been. But I still don't know about the rest of the team as well. Like, I feel like I need to get back to just thinking the way I did back in November, and that this team has a high ceiling as anyone in conference. But can they put it all together? We're sitting here discussing it right now. The same conversation that we had in November. So I feel like that's what Illini fans just need to do. Just come to terms that unless they start making 30% of their 3-point shots on a more consistent basis and, sure up a few things here or there, and they need to get at full health. Like, I don't think this team's going to go the Final Four or anything like that if they don't have Tommy. And mono is a wild disease. Like, he could be back in a week, he could be back in 3 months, and then by then the season's over, right? So like, I don't know where this team is headed, but have a little perspective and remind yourself you probably were optimistic and hopeful back in November, and basically everything that we had thought was going to happen has happened. Things could be better, absolutely, and they could absolutely be in the race for the Big Ten. And I think that's where a lot of fans are frustrated because, as we both have sat here and said, they are roster-wise, talent-wise, all that. They probably have the best roster in the conference. Maybe Purdue's is better. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Michigan. I don't know. They almost lost to Penn State at home. I don't know. But like, at the end of the day, continuity, chemistry, all those things do matter, and we need to watch that play out. The fact that they're probably not going to win the conference this year, it's not the most surprising thing. I was hopeful to finish in the top 5, but you win by as much as you did at Oregon, the way you beat Washington, beat Penn State the way you did. Yeah, I thought about it for a day or two, So that's my perspective for a lot of this, dude.
Yeah, and I think right now we just have to adjust our expectations a little bit. Conference title's probably out the window, but let's get a top 4 seed. Let's get that double bye, in the Big Ten tournament. I'll be fine with that. And here's me, let me spin this a little bit on a more positive direction. All right. It's unfortunate losing Tomislav Isivic right now. And what we're fortunate about is outside that Maryland game, this is kind of the stretch where you're going to be okay not having Tommy there because the next couple of games don't really have bigs that are going to, be too much of a concern. And probably until the UCLA game is probably the next one. But last year, Illinois was without Terrence Shannon Jr. for a stretch. And we saw Marcus Damask, step up and really become the Marcus that we saw by the end of the season, all Big Ten team. This year, my thinking is with Tommy gone, I've said this, I maybe said this on this show, but I certainly said it on mine early during the season that I thought Tomislav was the most important player on our basketball team. Only because I don't think anyone else can duplicate what he did, at that size. And, especially with Kerry Booth not being quite the player that, we probably all expected him to be, this puts a lot on Morez Johnson's shoulders. And sure, he struggled against Maryland, but, Derek Queen's going to be a top NBA draft pick, middle of the first round. Julian Reese is a fifth-year senior, and Julian Reese roasted Coleman Hawkins last year, a guy, a veteran on Illinois the year previous. But Morez came back against Northwestern and posted 15-9. And more importantly, I believe he had 34 minutes played. If for the next
out of foul trouble. Yep.
Exactly. If for the next 4, 5, 6 games, he can continue to put 25 plus minutes on the court, be a double-double machine, which he absolutely is, maybe by the time if Isivic comes back, Isivic is not going to play 30 minutes right away. Not coming back from mono. It's going to take some cardio where his first game back, he may play only 10 games, 10, 15 minutes. If, when Isivic does come back and Morez continues to play more of the minutes, maybe by the end of the season, because at this point, let's be honest, the only thing that really matters is maybe the Big Ten tournament, but really March. Maybe by when March comes rolling around, Isivic is back, healthy, normal, and Morez Johnson has had way more time on the court. He's built some a respect with the officials in the sense where they're not going to be so quick to the whistle with him every single time as they seem to be most of the year. And, then at that point, all this could be a good thing. Maybe then we become more of a complete team because Isivic and Morez Johnson, I've called that the death lineup in 1 week into Locked On Illini this season starting. I'm like, wait, when those two will play together, I think this team can, really put the pressure on the opposition. But I think a developed Morez, a confident Morez playing 25 minutes with Isivic, who we already see is a very solid player, I think that kind of adds to the upside of what this team really can be. So that's who I'm kind of looking for the stretch of games, because there's a lot of pressure on Morez. If Morez gets into foul trouble, I don't know. Are we going to have Jake Davis guarding the opposing big again? Ben Humrickhouse? They can't do it. And so that's where we're going to, possibly be in trouble.
Jake Davis is, that meme, the Shaq meme, where he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize your game or whatever it was. That is Jake Davis to me.
For sure.
He's been so good for Illinois.
What a pleasant surprise he was. I didn't even think he'd play.
Right. That's it. If there's anyone who's been making threes, it's him. And I also love that he gets on the offensive boards too. So
he's hustling. I think I talked about it. He plays like a coach's son.
Yeah.
He's always making the right play. And every time he's on the court, he's doing something productive, whether it shows up on the box score or not. I can't wait to see what he looks like on next year's team, with another year of, working with Fletch. And I'm very excited about his future for sure.
Sure. All right. Let's go through some of these comments. I think the first one, we'll start with it and we can talk about it a little bit, but, or this is actually the second one, but let's just get straight to it. From Philip, thoughts on the Orange Crush being called out. So, Sunny, you would know more about this than me because I guess I'm not as huge on Illini Twitter as I am Cubs Twitter, but I did see that just people posting screen grabs of the State Farm Center and pointing out empty seats, this and saying that I don't know exactly why we're calling out the Orange Crush outside of the fact that I guess in the recent home games from watching on my television, I feel like it's not as rowdy, I guess you could say. That's what the vibe I'm getting. Like, even against Northwestern, I felt like the Orange Crush wasn't, lighting it up to a point to where I could feel it through my TV like I have in the past. Or where are you on this? Because I'm kind of confused about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm also confused because I'm like twice the age of the people that Crush, so it's like I feel weird commenting on it. I know everyone on Twitter has been, but like I get it from a certain aspect that we saw that game against Michigan State, and I said this at the post game. The Izzone, that student section was rowdy. That was like fun. That was energy. That's what I think about when I think of what I like about college basketball, like the atmosphere. We already know about Mackey, right? Purdue, Mackey, that audience, that crowd goes crazy for Purdue. Illinois used to have a pretty good home court advantage. It used to be one of those places that showed up on these lists of toughest places to play, State Farm Center. Now, when it shows up, I know that whoever came up with that graph is just being lazy.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like when Illinois lost its second game in a row at home to Maryland, a lot of fans were just looking to, get their anger out and pin a blame on
blaming someone,
something, everything. And in this case, the Orange Crush, also got some of that blame. I think some of it is definitely warranted. As you said, even in that Northwestern game, I felt like I needed to put the volume louder. It wasn't really the traditional State Farm Center that I'm used to. But coming up with the logistics on how to fix it, I see some people tweet out like 7-8 bullet points on what needs to be done. It's like, that's beyond my, it's like, all right, I'm a couple generations away from that.
Yeah.
But it certainly does need to be fixed because I think we are losing out something when it comes to a home court advantage.
I mean, I've been to 2 games this year. I've driven down to Champaign for 2 games. One was against the Penn State game, and the other one was back in December against Wisconsin. So I felt like the Wisconsin game, the crowd was good. And so my explanation is they just haven't played opponents that Illini fans are getting up for. Like they haven't played Michigan State at home yet, and they haven't played Michigan, and they haven't played Purdue, and they haven't played Iowa. I feel like that Indiana game, if the Indiana game happened at State Farm, maybe it probably would have been different. There certainly wouldn't have been fire Mike Woodson chance, but I guess that's my take on it. Is they just haven't played opponents that I guess most of us are getting up for. But also, like, if that's the case, then these students are being lazy and they need to get it together. So I will say too that because of this, maybe the Orange Crush will come out in a bigger way against Ohio State this weekend. But also, on the other hand, too, I guess Brad said something in post-game after Northwestern and thanked the fans and everything because I guess one of Illinois' recruits was in attendance. And he said that the atmosphere was great and this and that. And like, that's how we sell these guys on coming here. And so maybe my TV just needs to be louder in general. Maybe my TV sucks. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I mean, Brad's not really the type of guy who was going to call out the student.
Right.
Students really at this point. So, but it's just one of those where I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. It's like I got too many other things that I got to focus on when it comes to this.
Sure.
Covering this team. But yeah, is it an issue? Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I don't know. It's one of those where I want to make State Farm Center a hard place to play at again. And right now, I don't really know how hard it is. We just lost 2 in a row. We had the potential of losing 3 in a row. And, in that Northwestern game, they just went through stretches where you could barely hear them. And I know you said we haven't had a real opponent in, but, Northwestern's supposed to be a rival.
Supposed to be.
Yeah. It's just, and not even that. You're 19 years old. You're 20, 21, 22 years old. Okay. you shouldn't need an excuse to scream and shout.
Yeah.
You know, like that's literally all you guys do on the weekends. Just, I don't know.
Yeah. If it helps, I saw the guys at Sleepers put up a video just related to this. So I don't feel like we wasted our time. Jason said, first comment, he said, I do think we need Big T back. I will say this over and over again, even though I love Jake Davis, he cannot come in before Riley. We need him to start making some shots and help this team with size. Yeah, I do think size is important. And like when they play Michigan, if they don't have Tommy back, that will be bad. That will not be good. But if Merez can stay on the court, I guess, and he develops some confidence and stuff, maybe they can hang around without Tommy. We'll see how that plays out. But I think matchup wise, it certainly hurts them. And like maybe Brad will have to adjust to kind of how they played last year. Because remember, Coleman Hawkins was guarding Zach Edey at Purdue, and Illinois lost that game by like 5 or 6 points. So I feel like if anyone can adjust and figure this out without Tommy, it's Brad. But I don't feel like it's different because last year they went into the season knowing they're going to be small. So, yeah, it's tough.
This is just one of those situations where it hurts missing on Kerry Booth, right? If Kerry was, again, he was a 4-star coming out of high school. He played decent at Notre Dame. I think he started 19 games there. If he just was a player that you could give 20 minutes to and Brad could trust to give 20 minutes to, this loss of Isivic wouldn't be so devastating. Yeah. But right now, obviously, Kerry's just not the rebounder that Brad is looking for. And we're really shorthanded when it comes to bigs. Shorthanded in the sense it's Merez or nothing.
Yeah.
When we can talk about Jake Davis, but Jake's can't grow an extra 3 inches,
right?
And 30 pounds. So we're also putting him in situations which aren't ideal for him. So, but that's why Brad gets paid all the big bucks that he does, is to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. Let's see. Jay says Tommy might be out for a while. I had mono years ago and wasn't healthy for over a month. Yeah, like as we said, we'll see. It's going to be a day-to-day basis. Like maybe Brad will give us some good news in a week. Maybe he'll give us good news on Thursday. I don't know, man. So, Lazy Force Gump, LFG, welcome back. Just enjoy the ride. This time next year, KJ will be throwing lobs to Wemby. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Maybe the Duke center will be healthy, not puking on the court again.
Did you see that?
I did not see that, actually.
Oh my gosh. He literally just he was under the basket and out of nowhere just puked all over the court. They had to stop the game. And when I say they had to bring out like 20 towels to clean everything up, no, it's literally 20. I'm not being exaggerating there. It was the grossest thing I've ever seen in 30 plus years of watching college basketball.
I'm going to make sure I'm not going to go watch it now. Jay says, I'm predicting 7-4 down the stretch. Okay. Well, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but 7-4, they're 14-7 right now, Sunny? Is that what they're at?
14-6.
14-6. So 21-10 is what he's predicting.
I'll take it.
I'll take another 20-win season. Sure. Let's see. I should have read some of these earlier just because it could have gone well with our conversation, but I was just so in depth venting because I didn't get to talk the other day. LFG says 17th in 3-point percentage of this team is the elite shooting team. We think they are. Water will find its level and we will start lighting it up.
That's what I hope.
Yeah, that's kind of like the optimistic view on it. Like they should be better than second to last in the Big Ten in 3-point shooting, right?
It should be. But again, we're all halfway through the Big Ten season now. At some point, what do you just say? This is what you are.
Right. That's true. Philip says Illinois is second in the country in rebounds per game, 48.1. I didn't realize they were second. That's awesome. That's good news. They just need to keep doing that, I think. Cody, you nailed it. I love it when people will say that I was right. I'm a big time Underwood Daddy Brad fan club. These fans that talk crap wanting him gone are crazy. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's so hot or cold, man. Like, what else does this guy got to win the national championship every year for you to like him? Like, I don't know. It's just is what it is. Purdue was a national runner-up and lost at Nebraska last year.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska also had Keisei Tominaga last year.
Right.
Okay, they don't have him this year. That guy, he was really fun to watch play basketball.
He was everybody's favorite player that wasn't on their team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got an interview set up with a Nebraska content creator for Wednesday's episode, and like that's one of the first questions I just want to ask. Like, do you miss him as much as we miss him, and he wasn't even on our team?
Mm-hmm. Right. I guess LFG says I think we need to go back to the orange out games. I kind of dig that. You know what they should do? They should just change the court back to the logo that was out there in like the 2000s with the ball that's just Illinois. Illinois. Bring that logo back, and the crowd would go back. That's my thought. There you go.
Illinois is all over the script writing right now, especially the football team. Maybe you just try something different.
Yeah. I do like the script look. I do like it, especially for the football team on the helmets. I do kind of dig that. But
yeah, I like it.
But like the other logo, I could go without it. Bring back the old one from like the 2000s.
So. Yeah, the block eye. I don't think anyone likes the block eye.
Yeah. Robert says, let's not forget Brad had a complete personnel turnover. He got a lot of good players, but it takes a while for a team to mesh. Inconsistencies must be expected. Yeah, and that's a lot of what I was saying throughout this conversation when it comes to just like trying to adjust expectations and how I should feel and not getting too high or too low. I think a lot of the irrational feelings about the team was in the negative way was a lot because of what happened at the beginning of January. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, like no one thought they were going to lose to USC. And I think most of us felt pretty good going into Michigan State after what happened against Indiana. But history says that Brad and Maryland's kryptonite. I don't know what's going on with that, but I don't know. I'm bummed they didn't go to 7. They're not going to go 7-2 this month, but 6-3 was what I always envisioned. So I have to keep telling myself that.
We just need to take care of business in the next few games. Like they're all winnable. You know, Nebraska, Ohio State, Rutgers, Minnesota, UCLA. We'll see because UCLA has really turned it around over the past week or so. So
yeah,
but just stay afloat while Isivic is gone, and hopefully we'll have Tommy back by February 11th for that UCLA game.
Yeah. All right, man. Before we started, I said we probably not going to go an hour, and well, we've basically gone an hour. So I guess that's credit to both of us just having a lot to say, or maybe it was just me because I definitely went on a few tangents. So, as many people know, I tend to do that. But yeah, so I appreciate you for jumping on tonight, a late night here. I know you're in Texas, right? So like it's the same time.
Same time. Yeah, we're all Central Time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Make sure everyone here knows where Sunny's from, but if you don't listen or watch Locked On Illini, go hit that subscribe button on his YouTube channel. If you haven't hit subscribe here, hit subscribe here. You can watch us both. I feel like, there's a lot of good Illini content creators out there. I'm just here to just kind of hang out, not be the top guy, but like kind of be somewhere around. That's me. But
you're selling yourself short, Cody. You're great at what you do.
I appreciate that. I do. I like to hear it. I'm just never going to say it. But yeah. So I appreciate y'all for checking out the show tonight. Hit the like button, subscribe. The link's in the description for the audio podcasts on Apple or Spotify. And the game's on Thursday night. I'm going to try and be here for after the game for Thursday night. So stay tuned for that. Turn the notifications on. I will eventually be here if it's not right after the game, but I will be here Thursday night or Friday morning. We'll see how it happens. And it's never confirmed, but Sunny's always live immediately after the game. So, anyway, now if if the Cubs trade for Michael King, on Thursday, I will not be here. I'm just gonna let y'all know. All right. I'll be here Friday. I'll be here Friday though. All right. So yeah, thanks for everyone watching. I appreciate y'all's support. I'll see y'all Thursday, hopefully. And as always, or before I go, Sunny, you have anything to say? Anything? Did I miss
No, not at all. Like you said, if you're an Illini fan, do a search for Locked On Illini. I'm at 30 days straight of producing content. I've only missed one day since December 22nd. And
Wow.
I'm talking about a half hour every single day. And Cody mentioned it. Please join our Discord. If you're on Discord, we've got a pretty good group in there talking Illini sports all day, every day. Not just Illini sports, just life, professional sports, all that fun stuff. I'll drop a link in the comment section after the show's over.
All right. Awesome, man. Thanks for joining me. And to everyone out there, thanks again. We'll see you Thursday. ILL.
Aye.